What to review next? What the hell? What the hell was that? That sounded like a bloody chocobo. I'm gonna have to investigate this. Oh, what the flying hell happened there? Oh my god, what is this? It seems that Chocobo has left us a wee little present in the form of the Pixel Remaster. How did he know that we will be reviewing all the Final Fantasy games? What a coincidence. Now, I wish I could say that Chocobo dropped me off a nice little present in the form of a game, not a poo. I wish he had dropped me off the Pixel Remastered Physical Edition for PS4, but these prices, goddamn, I ain't paying that. And I have forever and a day wanted to play the Final Fantasy series in its entirety, so I thought, why the hell not? Why not together with you people out there? Why don't we play every single Final Fantasy game in the mainline series? And for that matter, we are starting today with Final Fantasy 1 for the Pixel Remaster on the PlayStation 5. So let's jump in, check it out. The opening piano music just sends pure chills down my spine. That classic Final Fantasy tone, oh so moving. And that is something that Final Fantasy is well known for. First up, we have the character selection, and oh, how charming this is. You get to select up to 4 different characters, and within those characters, up to 6 different classes. Those ones being the Fighter, Black Belt, Thief, White Mage, Black Mage, and Red Mage. Being that Final Fantasy 1 is a big open world RPG, you, the player, really get to choose the way that you want to play this game. For my class of characters, I went with Rusty Me, that is, the warrior. You can't half tell that I think I've got a big head. Percy, my monk cat, because I can't get enough of my cute cat Percy. Lightning as my white mage, as I think she was so awesome in Final Fantasy 13 and one of my gaming crushes that she is. And then last but not least, Vivi as my black mage, because he is my all-time favourite Final Fantasy character, and I kind of wonder whether he still will be my favourite Final Fantasy character once this series is complete and done. And I'd love to know from you guys watching this, what is your favourite Final Fantasy character and why? Once we're ready with our team, we enter the world of darkness, full of environmental problems and decay. Through the world of darkness, our chosen characters become the 4 warriors of light and are each given a special empty crystal. Our very first adventure we go on is to save the King of Cornelia's daughter, Sarah, who has been abducted by the evil knight, Garland. Now, I don't know about you, but with all these princesses like Peach and Zelda getting abducted, and now Sarah as well, maybe it's time we get some beefed up security within some of these castles. What do you guys think? Garland provides such an awesome challenge. Going up against him the first time, I got my ass handed to me on a platter. Seriously, I was like, wow, if this is what it's going to be like, I'm excited. Always love a more challenging RPG over an easier one. But I just also wanted to say that I loved the art style of Garland. Just looks truly epic, and even though it's that 2D sort of, pixelated graphics, it still looks quite menacing, and it gives you that sort of like a fear factor of like, shit, this guy means business. And I just love that, and I can't wait to see what the other bosses are going to be like as we continue on within this review. One of the things that I loved straight away was the ability to change between your characters on the main map, and it was uber cute when you see Vivi running around on the screen with his little bum wiggling. It had me cracking up the first time seeing it, and this is something that I really think is just a key feature in RPGs that needs to be seen when there's multiple characters involved. it's always good to be able to switch between characters, especially when you're out on that main map. You don't always want to be seeing the same character in front of you. It gets a little bit stale, so switching up between characters can make it fun, so I love this little feature. It's in the opening area, so we get to learn what our team is really capable of. Battles are randomized, and depending on the terrain, different enemies will spawn. Up to 9 enemies are possible to bring up on screen at any given time, which is really impressive for a game of this age, I must say. While we're talking monsters, one thing that was impressive within this game was the fact it had 128 individual monsters and bosses alike to go against within this game, and I absolutely loved the variety behind this. You had zombies, you had sharks, you even had freaking dinosaurs within this game. Like, come on, how cool is that? And even bosses that had crazy drop rates. Now, to get the platinum trophy, I had to spend quite a lot of time, 4 hours in total, waiting for this damn war mech boss to drop. And finally I got him, and then my capture card decided to shit itself. So I don't have much capture of that at all, so I'm gonna have to show you a picture of him. But it was just so awesome to have that boss, I should say, drop and finally be able to take him on and get that trophy go ping there in the corner. The variety of monsters in this game was just so cool, and each of them had their own sort of elements, and you had to try and really be strategic on what you were going to use against certain enemies in order to beat them. But just loved the monsters within this game. Now, in between battles, like in all traditional sort of JRPGs, we have the classic villages that just feel so cute and humble within this game. They have the staple buildings that we need to progress within this game. We have the Black Magic Store, this one providing us with dark magic to take on the toughest of enemies. We then have the White Magic Store, giving us the ability to learn protection spells and white magic to heal us against some deadly blows. We also then, in between battles, when we need to heal ourselves, we have the hotel providing us the health that we need to get back out there and fight on. If anyone has fallen and they're KO'd, they're dead, any of our characters can be brought back to life through the local church. Not all villages though have a church, so take note when you're playing through. Then we have the weapons store, where we can provide our characters with some epic gear to take on the toughest of bosses. And we then also have, to finish off, the arms store, giving us the shields and defense we need to take some heavy blows from the opposition. While we're talking about villages, I couldn't help but tell you guys about a little bit of a crossover within this world of this game, Final Fantasy. There was this town called Elfham, and it was so cute and adorable. It had these little green elves running around, and I was like, oh my god, that looks like Link from The Legend of Zelda. And truth behold, then I went around and found this little tombstone area, and it came up with this alert, and I was like, what is this? And it has, here lies Link, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a tribute to Link from The Legend of Zelda. And it's kind of sad, but also very cute at the same time. One of my favourite parts of the game while trying to collect the power crystals was meeting up with Bahamut, who gives us a buff of courage to all of our characters. All of our characters, oh my god, they turn into super buff warriors, and even Vivi has a face which cracks me up. I just loved this, and honestly I didn't even expect this, and for all the time that I've been alive I didn't even know this existed, and I wish it did, but it was such a pleasant surprise seeing this. Graphically, Final Fantasy 1 looks really good. It's had that fresh coat of paint, and I must say I'm always a big fan when companies redo these games, that they give you the ability to switch between the old style graphics and the new style graphics. I know that was something I really loved when I was doing some of the Halo reviews, was the ability to do that, and Final Fantasy 1 does exactly that. I just love it. It's not over the top, it still has that retro look to it. It's just, as I said, that fresh coat of paint that makes it look sharper and makes it look more appeasing on the eye, especially when you're playing on a big screen like I was. You also have the chance to change the font within the game, so you can go with the old retro style, or you can have more modern, fresh, retro style looking graphics for that matter. And then we finish off with the music, which is one of the strong parts of this game. It is just so memorable and I love it to bits. Is you have the chance to switch between the old music from the original title, where it's a little bit dated in today's terms, or you can go in and play the fresh remastered versions of these songs. Some of them will obviously sound a little bit different, but I still love that old school style and I tend to go back to that. But have a little listen, guys, to the little bit of a difference here with one of the songs. At the ending stages of the game, there are 4 major bosses to defeat to gain the power to fill our crystals. First up, we have Lynch, the boss containing the earth element. It is a creepy looking boss capable of strong ice and confusion moves. If you're looking to beat this boss with ease, I would highly recommend a fire-based move. Then we have Merilith with the element of fire. Well, technically Merilith 2 if you want to be really technical. During the game, you fight this boss not once, but twice. Second time round, Merilith has more hit points. If you've got some trusty magic on your side, you shouldn't have any issues with getting past this boss. It's of no real surprise that the Kraken would be our next boss to battle, being the floor is made of the Temple of Chaos. I love the art style of this boss, so epic. Physical attacks are really key to get past this one. And last but not least, we have Tiamat, the element of wind. I always love a good dragon battle, especially when it's one with this many heads. At this stage and passing the previous bosses, you shouldn't have any real issues passing this boss if you've got, quite a decent level with behind most of your characters. After all 4 of our bosses are defeated, the power of our once empty crystals is returned, and now it's time to take on Chaos. I will say I highly recommend you stock up on equipment and items, because you're going to need it in this final battle. One great piece of equipment is the Excalibur sword that I equipped to my warrior, and it really did help take some of the punch from Chaos. The final boss, Chaos, lives up to its name, and I must say I freaking love how big this boss is. It just shows you that this is the final boss. It's bigger, it's badder, it's uglier than all the bosses before them, and I just love the style they did with this. All the previous bosses were big, but when you see this, it just takes up all the screen, and that's what I call a final boss. So hats off to the developers behind this game. It was amazing. I had a lot of challenge against trying to beat the Chaos boss. Even being at level 99, I still struggled, and it did take me quite some time to beat it. I believe you can probably beat Chaos at a lot lower level, but you got to be prepared to die a few times. Once Chaos is blown into a million pieces and we've taken him down, he is sent off into the oblivion, and it takes all of the monsters that have once given such darkness to the world, they're taken away and wiped off the face of the planet, and peace has finally returned to the world. Time-wise, if you're looking to play Final Fantasy 1, you're just looking to play it just in its sheer form and just get past the bosses and finish it, you're probably looking at around about 15 hours. It takes probably a little bit longer if you went for the Platinum Trophy like I did, but trust me, it is so worth getting the Platinum Trophy for. It's not hard, and you're just going to want to try and get all of those extra monsters and other little collectibles out there to finish off your Platinum Trophy within this game. It must be said that I thoroughly enjoyed Final Fantasy 1. I can't believe after all these years that I had never decided to play it in its entirety. I remember picking it up, playing it for a little bit on the PSP for that matter, but not getting fully into it. I got sidetracked with another game, as we all tend to do at time from time. But do yourself a favour, pick up the Final Fantasy 1 game off the PS5 or PS4 network for that matter, or even on the Switch. You can still get the physical copy. I know that's something that I really want to add to my list, where you can pick it up from PlayAsia. Not being sponsored by them by any means, but I know that's a place where you can get it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of our Final Fantasy review series. We have got a lot of games to finish off. Now, for those asking, Russell, are you going to go back and finish off the last games of the Halo series? Yes, we definitely will, and stay tuned for that. I'm going to break it up a little bit, so I'm going to have just a random game coming next. And then we will look at going back to Final Fantasy 2 and perhaps Halo straight after that. So there's a lot of reviews coming. Please leave me some comments. Let me know game series or games you'd like me to review in the future. Anything I can do better. I know I'm still learning. I'm getting better at every video that I do, but I'm still learning here. So if there's things I can improve on, please let me know. I won't take it too much to heart. Please don't turn around and say, you suck, because that'll break my little heart. But by all means, please give me some tips. And if you're willing to, please join my YouTube members. I earn absolutely nothing on here, and I would love to do this full time. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I want to do this full time for a living and get away from my stupid, boring retail life. But if it never happens, well, who cares? I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, fools. See you later. Well, with Final Fantasy being completed, the series is all done and dusted. Sorry, what? It wasn't the final game. What do you mean? It's called Final Fantasy, isn't it? There's more than one game? There's how many games? Shit, well, in that case, let's jump into reviewing Final Fantasy 2! Well, Gundy's Final Fantasy 2 begins in a world where long-lived peace has reigned for many years. But as we know, it wouldn't be a game without some sort of threat on the horizon. The Palamisia Emperor wants to take all this peace away and is succeeding very well on his evil campaign. All the while, Firion, Maria, Guy, and Leon are fleeing their hometown as it's burning to the ground. Our young youths from Finn have been sent to save the world, kind of similar to the story really from Final Fantasy 1, except this time there's no 4 crystals to contend with. With most RPGs, if you're a seasoned player like myself, you know that they're often not very quick in getting you to the first battle. There's a lot of dialogue and you're just itching to get in. Well, Final Fantasy 2 ain't mucking around. It throws us straight into our first battle against the Black Knights, which kind of reminded me of the Ring Wraiths from the Lord of the Ring movies. Watch out, Mr. Frodo! Now, over the years, as I've been playing games, I've heard these little rumours around the place that Final Fantasy 2 had a very different and interesting battle system, and this was true on my playthrough. Unlike the traditional RPGs, where you get the leveling up for beating enemies and completing quests, this time round, there's none of that. There's none of this level 10, level 20, level 69. There's nothing like that. It is all about how you go about using things. So by using your magic spells, you can level them up by using them for X amount of times. You can also level up your gear by using them excess amount of times and winning battles. So it is in your best interest is to keep using things and getting out there, and you will build yourself some ultimate characters that will help you with progressing through this game. Now here you say, Russ, what are your thoughts on this? For me, I don't mind the battle system. Did I love it? No, I didn't love it at all. I thought it was good in its own right. I still prefer the traditional sort of RPG elements of leveling up your character and seeing them getting stronger. But you know what? I give it to the team behind Final Fantasy 2. They gave it a crack, and that's the main thing. You got to try and evolve and make things better. You can't just get stuck doing the same repetitive thing all the time, because it's just going to end up just being boring and bland over time. And I just love that they gave it a shot. And that's all you can say is well done. Now, one of my favourite things within Final Fantasy 2 was coming across, discovering that is Chocobo. I mean, come on, have a look at this. How bloody cute. He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die! Seeing how far Chocobo has come over the years is just amazing. You look at the Final Fantasy 2 version of Chocobo where it's tiny, cute and yellow, and I just think it's absolutely adorable. To today, playing the latest game, Final Fantasy Rebirth, which I highly recommend playing, the ultimate just realism within the Chocobo. They all have their own sort of individuality now. They've got, their own unique feathers and outfits, and I just absolutely love that. So, seeing the very beginning to where it is today is awesome. I must admit, using Chocobo in Final Fantasy II really was a little bit useless. I didn't really use the Chocobo at all, that's being quite frank with you guys, because once you dismount, it returns back to the Chocobo Sanctuary, and I never really went back to collect it again, because once you go by boat or via airship, there's no real reason to go back to it. More or less just to have that little bit of cuteness and music behind it. Today we are just absolutely spoiled with mounts in JRPGs and open world games for that matter. I mean, we can just simply whistle now, and you can have a mount come out from the shadows ready to use, which is just so cool. But yeah, I just wanted to really talk about how I just love the fact that, just seeing the difference between this game, Final Fantasy II, and the latest sort of games with Final Fantasy, just the difference in how far things have come in really what is a short period of time. Alongside the first appearance of Chocobo, we also get the first appearance of Cid, which, interesting enough, is a character that has been in the series of Final Fantasy across all games, minus the first title. Doing some research, I also found out it would have been the first appearance of the mascot, the Final Fantasy mascot that is, of the Moogle. But in the last stages of the game, they decided to turn it into this uber cute bear. I mean, have a look at these little guys here. How does this not melt your heart? One of the strong points in Final Fantasy has always been the monsters in the game, and Final Fantasy II continues that epicness of just bringing new, refreshed monsters into the series. And this game is no exception. I just loved everything about it. Just going into these new areas and discovering new enemies all the time was always something fun and exciting. From the hairy Sasquatches to these evil little elves, all the way up to some epic boss enemies, which we'll talk a little bit more on. It really did have it all. There were some great bosses throughout the playthrough of Final Fantasy II, and I just loved each and every one of them. I really liked the fact that you could discover some of these by a pure chance of opening up a chest, and they would jump out at you and you'd have to battle them. It kind of reminded me of the Pokemon being trapped in Pokeballs. I was like, how the hell does this massive boss get into this treasure chest? It was kind of amusing for me. A few standouts were the Amatos, a huge boss tortoise. I mean, how rad is this? I see like tortoises in the zoo, and it takes them forever just to walk a little bit, and they're only really doing it sometimes, I would imagine, just to get food. And I can't believe that they would be able to pull up a boss battle of all things, but I just loved the creativity behind this. The Red Dragon was another one I really loved because of its style, and I mean, who doesn't love a good dragon battle? It's in the blood of JRPG players to want to fight a dragon. We then have Beelzebub because I just love anything that is a bee or fly. I know it might sound strange, but strange is who I am. And lastly, but not least, we have Tiamat, a multi-headed dragon. I mean, it just looks like something out of the world of Godzilla. One thing I did fail to mention in my Final Fantasy I review was the fact that with Final Fantasy II, like Final Fantasy I, you could use the auto battle feature in the pixel remastered version. And this was great. Rather than having to, mash the button and be there all the time when you're grinding, you could just have your controller do the work.
Well, do thy bidding, controller. These monsters aren't going to kill themselves.
Story-wise, I really did enjoy, for the most part, the story around Final Fantasy II. It was a lot more in-depth, and you felt a little bit more of a connection with the majority of the characters. However, one thing I did find difficult was that the fourth character within the squad was always disappearing, and it was being replaced by someone else. So it was a little bit hard when you're playing a shorter game like this, being Final Fantasy II, to build a connection with that fourth character. However, I must say that I did get quite emotional during this game. It was quite surprising. I didn't think that a pixelated game would affect me nowadays, but it certainly did. You know, we are very spoiled today with this amazing graphics that we have in JRPGs now. And going back to this pixel-related game, I thought I was strong and I could take the emotions. But you know, as I found getting older, I just can't seem to hold my emotions as well as what I used to, and I just let the tears flow. So there was quite a few times where I did find myself crying, laughing, and you know, having a good time. So for overall, I didn't mind the story behind Final Fantasy II. When it comes to the world itself, Final Fantasy II has it all, from the lush forests to the cold, icy areas to the hot lava caves, even dry deserts. All the elements are really represented in this game, and really well. One thing I always appreciate is the monsters from these areas feel like they belong. You have those cold monsters in the cold areas. You have these sort of bugs and the sort of things you'd find in a forest. And then, you know, out in the sand areas, you'd have things that you'd imagine would be out there. And I just love those little details. Navigating through the world, we have a number of transportation pieces. We have the canoe, which we had from Final Fantasy 1. We have the chocobo, the ever so cute chocobo, which we've touched on. We have the sailboat, a snowmobile, which I thought was just so cool, going through the snow areas, and even an airship. I must admit, once I got to that airship, I rarely used any other forms of transport because it was just so quick to jet around the map. Towns and castles are much the same as Final Fantasy 1, with each place having their essentials from buying items, resting your characters, bringing those back from the dead. Each town and area had its set charm, to which I really enjoyed. Nobuo Uematsu really brings an amazing soundtrack to Final Fantasy II and really does strengthen this title. One standout for me was during one of the boss battles where the music was going hard and it really had me pumped. I mean, check out this cool little example. If you're wishing to know how long Final Fantasy II is, well, it really depends on how much you want to get out of it. Do you want to try and find every monster and beat it? Do you want to get all the trophies? Or do you just want to play the game and complete it for what it is? Depending on that, it could take you anywhere between 20 to 30 hours. It's a little bit more lengthy than Final Fantasy 1, and I feel like it just feels like it's perfect in the amount of length that it has. The final boss, which is always the true best part of any RPG, is getting to that final moment, and it's either going to be a good boss or it's going to be disappointing. Thankfully, the final boss, the Emperor, is truly epic. It really did have me pumped all the way through this battle, and it just made for such fun. Another great boss, and like I said in Final Fantasy 1, when you make a boss, make them big, make them the biggest thing in the game, and it just makes it uber cool. I just love it. The scale just screams end boss. The Emperor really does put up a good fight, but honestly, it wasn't as hard as Final Fantasy 1. I know in Final Fantasy 1, with the final boss Chaos, it took me multiple goes. Even with all my characters maxed out, I had to really put in some strategy to beat it. But in Final Fantasy 2, it really had no issue beating the final boss. I kind of found it quite easy, to be honest, but all in all, was a great final boss. Well, Gundies, there we have it. Final Fantasy II review done and dusted. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for watching. I overall really enjoyed playing this game. Did I like it as much as Final Fantasy 1? Well, I kind of liked it, I guess, a little bit more. And I know that might be a little bit shocking to some people out there. There's a lot of Final Fantasy fanatics like myself that, you know, are so involved with this series and probably won't agree with me, but we all have our own opinions. But I personally loved the monsters in this game, the bosses. I loved, you know, just the little bit extra weight they put behind the story. You know, there was a few little things that there were some issues with characters coming and going, and the battle mechanics. I didn't really like the fact that you couldn't level up like a traditional RPG, but nevertheless, I really still enjoy this game. I don't think this game deserves as much, you know, bashing as what it gets today. When I was reading through some other people's points on this game, there were a lot of people that didn't like Final Fantasy 2, and that's okay. We're not all meant to enjoy everything the same. So from me to you, just want to say thank you so much for watching. I can't believe we have cruised past 10,000 subscribers. The channel continues to snowball, and hopefully with this video we will get past 15,000 subscribers. That's my next goal, and the sky is the limit with this channel, and I'm just having so much fun doing these videos, and knowing that you guys are enjoying it, it just makes it ever so more worthy. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe, fools. See you later. Alright, well now that we've finished the Final Fantasy 2 review, I can now sit down and watch one of my favourite shows, The Crystal Maze. Oh no, please, not again, Chocobo. Just sat down with my cup of coffee. Come on, dude. Fire out. Alright, hold on to your feathers, I'm coming. Oh, this better be good. Hello? Chocobo? Oh, what's this? Well, it seems like Chocobo has left us a little letter here, so we better check it out. Well, let's see what this note has here. Review Final Fantasy 3, but I've just finished Final Fantasy 2. Well, you know what? I ain't arguing with this bird. I've seen its claws, and let's just say I ain't messing with it. So let's jump in and let's review Final Fantasy 3. After playing through the first original Final Fantasy titles, we make it to the world of Final Fantasy 3. The game begins with 4 unnamed heroes who, like in Final Fantasy 1, contain the power of light, a power needed to rid the evil monsters of the world. To my delight, Final Fantasy 3 grants the random name selection for our unnamed heroes. I went with Andy, Ruckus, Frankie, and Ray. Final Fantasy 3 brings a real focus around what they call the job system. In the beginning of the game, we are all Uni Knights, and don't they just look adorable? Probably not what our heroes were really going for. The amount of jobs and classes is pretty impressive for a game that was released back in the 1990s. From warriors to monks to black mages, thieves, all the way to some of the series' first appearances of summoners, dark knights and dragoon. It really has it all. My main squad consisted of Andy the Dark Knight, Ruckus the Black Mage because he looks like Vivi from Final Fantasy 9, one of my favourite characters, Frankie the Summoner, and Ray the White Mage to keep the team healthy and alive. It's early on, to my delight, I discovered the traditional levelling up system returns with Final Fantasy 3. In the real world, levelling up is a hard pill to swallow, but in Final Fantasy 3, it's all about you, the characters, getting stronger. As we defeat enemies and do goofy little dances at the end, our experience from battles help us level up and get stronger across various stats. One of my negative points of Final Fantasy 2 was how leveling up was just randomized. It made it quite challenging and not really in a fun way. Having Final Fantasy go back to that traditional leveling up system was just very refreshing for me. Now, we couldn't talk about all things leveling up without talking about monsters and bosses within the game. Our very first battle goes against some of the gold goblins, backed with some heavy toned familiar music. Just epic. One of the strong points of Final Fantasy III was its monsters and their designs. They just looked really, really good. From killer bees to mummies to lizardmen, all the way to the classic bombs, it really had something for everyone. Picking some of my favourite monsters within this game would be quite a challenge, I must say. But a few cool standouts for me were the Iron Claws. They just looked like something out of the Predator movie from the 80s. And the Chimbra Mage. I just loved the look of these with a lion head, goat body, and dragon serpent tail, which followed closely, interesting enough, to the Greek mythology. Final Fantasy III is jam-packed with some amazing bosses, and I just love the thought and details that went into each and every one of them. For the most part, a lot of the bosses weren't too much of a challenge, but at times grinding a few levels was needed to progress further into the game. Final Fantasy III had some real standout bosses. Gusto, one of the early bosses, looking big, strong, especially during the battle, holding on to his big
snake.
Boss Odin is one of the best looking bosses, looking truly epic on his horse mount. The boss packs some heavy hitting moves, so best take caution with this one. One of the most unlikely bosses was Echidna. This monster of a boss in Greek mythology is the mother of Cerberus and Chimera. Not a mum you want to piss off, that's for sure. Quite a challenging boss, but if you grind a little bit on your way, you should have no issues breaking her into a million pixels. Boss Bahamut is easily one of my favourite bosses. Bahamut is one of the game's additional bosses for that matter. It's big, it's bony, and it's one of the most challenging bosses within the game. I highly recommend you get yourself to level 40 if you're going to take on this big bony boy. The Titan boss lives up to his name with his height towering over our little heroes. I love the Titan for two reasons. One, it provides a fun battle, but two, the fact beating it unlocks the summoner job role. Summoning in the world of Final Fantasy is a huge deal. I know for me, I first discovered summons when I was playing Final Fantasy VIII back on the PlayStation 1 of all things. And that love for summoning grew when I used Yuna in Final Fantasy X, and I was just blown away with the graphics at that time. And for those that don't know, summons are powerful monsters that are called upon in battle to fight alongside the summoner. In Final Fantasy III, these powerful summons are essential in helping you progress to the end stages of the game with ease. Now, if you're asking, Russ, what is your favourite summon within Final Fantasy III? I wouldn't be able to tell you. Honestly, they are all cool in their own way, and we're going to go check them out right now. First up, we have Chocobo. Yes, that's right, our cute yellow feathered friend makes a return. With a powerful Chocobo kick, it's one bird you don't want to get angry. Shiva, the blue beauty, provides some power with its signature move, Diamond Dust, a classic summon that we'll talk more about, I'm sure, with future Final Fantasy reviews. Ramu, a powerful wizard looking summon with Judgment Bolt, basically casting a huge electric bolt. Ifrit is one of my favourite summons. I know I wasn't going to have a favourite, but he is definitely one of the best looking ones. Attacking with Heatra, I mean, check out how cool is this. Titan provides some great support with one of its main moves, Earth and Fury, dealing earth elemental damage to all enemies. Boss Odin has some powerful attacks, Xantetskin being one of them with a chance of ability of instantly killing enemies. Leviathan has a powerful water move, the Tidal Wave, to wash away our enemies. Then last not but least, Bahamut with what is probably the second coolest looking move, Mega Flare. This thing does some serious damage. Story-wise, Final Fantasy III had a big impact on me and it was quite moving at times. In the beginning, our four heroes stumble across the crystals, giving us unnatural ability to become the four Warriors of Light. Travelling through town to town, we discover the world is in quite some danger. Newsflash, this seems to be a common thing with Final Fantasy games. By talking and gaining support from NPCs on our journey, Final Fantasy III becomes one of the most engaging storylines we've played so far. Ultimately, our goal is to save the world from being destroyed. It's nothing new, it's simple, but you know what? It works. Music continues to be the strength of Final Fantasy III. Like in previous titles, it doesn't disappoint. The music ranged from jazzy and new age, to slow and somber pieces, to more upbeat rhymes. I really did enjoy the internal wind track from the world map. While we're talking about the map, it certainly did to me look a lot more sharper, and it was easier to navigate around the map itself. I'm not sure whether that was a pixel remaster thing, but it certainly was an improvement over the previous two titles. Graphically, Final Fantasy III is really good, especially for a game of its age. I know I'm playing the pixel remaster, but I can really appreciate the time and details that went into the environments, the townships, the characters, the monsters, the bosses. Everything just looks really, really good. And I like the fact that they made the game a little bit more linear. And what I mean by that is when you go into things like the caves and those sort of things, they are much more easier to navigate around. You're not going into these big dead-end areas and having to backtrack. Everything just seems to flow a lot more nicer with Final Fantasy III, and I love that. Vehicles make a strong comeback in Final Fantasy III. We get Cid's airship early on in the game to only have it destroyed. You can ride the Chocobo to get around, but once you get the airship, the Chocobo is a little bit useless, unfortunately. The Viking ship, the Enterprise, is a great ship for getting around the sea. The vehicle was upgraded later on in the game to the second airship. We get an aircraft called the Nautilus that can travel at great speeds. Later on we can use this ship to transform into a submarine where we can discover secret caverns with the ship, kind of like a big transformer in a way. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have one of the greatest vehicles I have used in an RPG. And I've played a lot of RPGs in my life, I can tell you that. This vehicle, the Invincible, has 4 beds for your team to rest, free of charge for that matter, an area to call upon a fat chocobo of all things. The ship has shops, it has the ability to purchase weapons, armor, magic. Basically, it's your very own mobile home. Townships are really no longer needed now, just hop on and off when you need. Just fantastic, love this. One thing I wanted to share with you all was my excitement of seeing the Moogle in the game. For those who don't know, these cute little characters are one of Final Fantasy's mascots, sitting right next to the likes of Chocobos and Cactuars. Final Fantasy III was actually the Moogle's first appearance in the world of Final Fantasy, and it's been continuing to be in Final Fantasy games in some form, except for Final Fantasy IV. I just found this very interesting and I thought that I would share it with you guys. Time-wise of Final Fantasy III, you're probably looking at around about 20 hours to complete. It's a nice, short and sweet sort of RPG, and these are some of the ones that I really enjoy, so you can jump on to the next game, especially if you've got a big backlog like I do. Now, saying that, if you want to make it quicker for yourself, you can, with the Pixel Remaster version, add things like extra experience and extra gil, which make it a little bit more fun and quicker to get through, that I found. I personally added that onto mine because I wanted to get through it quickly and not have to grind so much, so there's that option there. At the end of the game we reach the final boss, the Cloud of Darkness. You encounter this boss twice in the game, but at this stage it's on like Donkey Kong. The Cloud of Darkness is no joke. It packs some powerful attacks and has some really impressive stats to match it. One being its health, 120,000 in overall health. It took a fair bit of grinding to defeat the Cloud of Darkness, but once you defeat it, it is oh so satisfying. Overall, Final Fantasy III was a truly memorable game for me, and I really enjoyed playing it from start to finish. There wasn't really anything I could really complain about. I just loved it. It was great. It had great characters, had an awesome storyline. I just really enjoyed it for what it was. It was nice and short and sweet, which just made for a great experience. And I honestly can't wait to continue on with this review series with Final Fantasy IV. It's going to be an absolute blast. And I just want to say a big thanks to each and every one of you out there. We recently hit 15,000 subscribers, which just blows my mind. You know, a couple of years ago, we were struggling at 2,000 subscribers. To be where we are today is just amazing. And I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for that. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. My next goal is to hit 20,000. Hopefully we can do that before Christmas time. That would be amazing, but we'll see how we go there. I just want to say a big thanks to all my members who have been supporting the channel. I have recently gone out and bought myself a Mac Studio, and the Mac Studio has been fantastic. It has given me the ability to be able to just edit so much more in comfort. I can sit at the desk now rather than not be hunched over the MacBook Air. MacBook Air did its job at the time, but the MacBook Studio has been a big investment and it's paying off. I'm loving it, especially the Mac Studio screen. It's just so much better to be able to use that to be able to do all my editing. And I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys being the members and also my subscribers, so thank each and every one of you for that. Alright guys, stay tuned for the next review. We're going to be looking at Gundam Breaker 4 and then jumping into Final Fantasy 4. Next Final Fantasy review. It's going to be such a blast coming up. As always, don't forget to subscribe, fools. See you later.